Yo, what's up guys? Ton142 here, and today I am bringing you guys a different type of video than what I normally post. Usually I post some Warzone gameplays or a TFT video here and there, but today, since a new patch came out, 10.22, I decided I'd do a tier list and some of my thoughts on how I kind of play the game in its current state. So I'm generally a Masters ELO player, haven't hit really the Grandmasters ELO yet, but maybe I'll get there this set during set 4 Fates. Usually once I hit Masters, I kind of lose motivation to play the game longer than that, but maybe I'll try to push for Grandmaster since, competitive is starting to pick up speed. So today is just a tier list. New patch came out. It's called Morgue Week, I guess, because they did a lot of buffs to Morgana. They did some nerfs to Ahri and sharpshooters, but I still think everything is still more or less viable. There's like one S plus tier comp, and that's kind of the Talon Morgana comp. So I'll get into the rundown. So my S, as I said, S plus tier is Talon Morgana. S tier, I decided Ashe Hunters. And then kind of, I didn't know where to put Dusk Riven. It could be S or S minus, but it's still viable, especially when everyone's running Talon Morgana. And then A tier is just kind of everything else. So Ahri, Sharpshooters, Divine, Ninja Assassins, and the Nami comp. So I'll start later in the video. I'll talk about some item prioritization, how I kind of play the game, and I guess we'll just take it from there. So first, we're going to start off with the Talon comp. This is actually my personal favorite comp, even at the very beginning of the set, mainly because Morgana Talon are really good at 1-2 punch, and then you round it out with Yone or Ezreal, and you get a lot of damage, consistent damage, especially from Morgana, and Shen and Irelia, Yone are really good frontline. I guess the most important thing, I think everyone already knows kind of the comp, but I really value Adept. I love how it splashes some of these other synergies like Dazzler. If you find a Dazzler Morgana, then you get 4 Dazzler with Ezreal and Lux. But, any chosen that's kind of related to this comp is really good, like Assassin Talon, Enlightened Talon. You just kind of take it, right? Mystic Shen, if you have a lot of Ahri players or Mage comps running in your game, then you might want to splash in like Cassiopeia instead of Ezreal, right? So you get 4 Mystics in there too. So this comp is really, really flexible. I really like it. This is generally how I position. You have a front line. Yone's kind of your secondary because he doesn't get targeted unless you have really good items on Yone like Bramble, um, Gunblade, GA, that sort of stuff. But really, you're trying to prioritize items for Talon, Morgana. Morgana is really good with Morello. Um, you generally want some sort of Rabadons or Jewel Gauntlet to up the damage. Blue buff really helps her cast faster. Um, for Talon, he's like your one big boy carry. You're gonna want to prioritize the items for him. So he uses a lot of swords. So for IE, GA, and Hodge. So I guess it's pretty flexible with the items. When it was a War Week or when Divine was a really big S tier comp, I usually ran RFC, so that way you could shoot through Jack still, and you still avoid going head to head with the Warwick close in. So the items are definitely flexible, but the core of it is IE. You do not want to play this without IE. Bloodthirster is really good with it. Even Last Whisper if there's a lot of Vanguard, so it's pretty flexible with the items, but these are kind of my top 3 best in slot. Any other items you get, you usually want to put on Irelia and Yone. So this is right now the S plus tier comp. This has been my personal favorite comp ever since the new set launched. So it's pretty flexible, as you can see, with all the different synergies. And I will talk about some things related to kind of how I play a bit later in the video. So I don't want to make this video too long, but let's move on to the next comp. Next comp was a S tier comp, S plus tier comp from last patch. It has fallen off a little bit. It's the Ahri comp. I still think it's viable. You could be pretty flexible with some of the Vanguard items, frontline items, but we'll start off by saying you really want to itemize your Ahri early, and that includes getting Jewel Gauntlets, GA. You want Tears for Chalice, and even Blue Buff for Yuumi. So you're just souping up this Ahri so that you could one-shot the entire enemy team. And you have kind of your front line here. To explain the positioning, right now I have 4 Vanguards, Thresh, Sejuani, Aatrox, and Hecarim as my top. But you can be pretty flexible because if you find a Mystic Shen, you could replace Hecarim with Shen, and then you could round it out with 4 Mystics. Now, the reason why I have it like this is just because Yuumi will first ult the lowest HP ally, which is probably going to be a frontline unit, and then she will ult the furthest uh, unit from her current position, which is going to be Ahri, which is all the way in the corner. Now, this is really important because you want to buff the Ahri. Yumi's ability will pretty much buff Ahri up and speed up her attack speed, right? That's how the Mystic works. Other than that, you're pretty much just hoping that your front line will hold it off and hold off the other team until Ahri has time to uh, shoot her Spirit Bomb. Now, I put Thresh here in case you have this gap here. And then once if you manage to get to level 9, you just want to throw in whatever legendary units can fit, right? So I just put like Zillion and Azir because I think those are the top 2 that you could put. If you get like a chosen mage Ahri, then you could get like Lilia for a double cast, right? So it's pretty flexible in that regard, but I hardly ever get to go 9 unless I'm like really comfortable and I just hit. So Zillion's really important too if you manage to get him early, just because you could get double GA for Ahri. But really, you're trying to prioritize Ahri in this comp. So this has, again, as I said, fallen off a little bit, but I still think it's playable. So we'll go on to the next comp. This is the Ninja Assassin. So this is really important that you find a chosen assassin. You're gonna run 4 Ninja. I think this comp, think it was like an A tier comp or S minus tier comp, mostly because you need to really get specific items for this comp to work. If you get other items, this comp, it kind of sucks. If you have a Kali without IE or blue buff, she's gonna suck. So you need really specific items. The core of the comp is gonna be a Kali, and I guess Talon is kind of your secondary carry, and your ninjas are just kind of there to hold them off. The reason why I'm positioning in the back line is so that anybody who has cornered their carries, like an Ashe comp, will bring the units forward so that your assassins can jump on the back line a lot better, and that we'll be able to target them easier. If you have any other items, they're good with Talon. Locket is generally pretty good because you're lining everyone up on the back. In some situations, you want to front line everybody, but that's very dependent on the matchup. Sometimes when you reach level 9, you're going to want to maybe swap out Diana and Katarina for like maybe Zillion and I guess Zillion and like Azir, like or Yone, some other legendary units, because sometimes there might be some Ahri players or Sharpshooter players or Dusk players, and those legendary units really just are better than having the 6 assassins. And you could drop down to 4 assassins and splash in like Mystics and Adept, right? So those are sometimes better. Um, for this comp, I've tried rolling down on both 6 and 7 and slow rolling. I mean, you don't want to just waste all your gold because you got to really 3-star Akali, maybe 3-star Zed, maybe 3-star Pike. So you're slow rolling until you hit those 3-star spikes, and generally you will be able to top 4 if you hit. It is very item dependent, as I said. That's why it's kind of an A tier comp right now. And you are badly outmatched against mages because Ahri will literally one-shot your entire team, especially if they have Aatrox, because he will pull your Akali away even though she has RFC. So be careful about that. Anyways, I don't think I have anything else to say with this comp. You kind of itemize Shen if you kind of have these random chains and kind of items. Shen is really good item holder for this comp specifically. Talon's just useless without IE, so You might not want to itemize Talon if he doesn't have that. But I think that's all I have to say about this comp. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, another kind of S minus tier comp I think back into the meta is Elderwood. And I only have the 6 Elderwood version here because I think 9 you got to get a spat and you need a chosen Ashe or a chosen Elderwood. And if you notice, a lot of my comps right now are kind of you're kind of hitting 8 and then you don't know if you're going to go 9 or not, right? It's very specific on how much HP you have left or if you have the economy to still go for it. Now, this is my optimal positioning. Usually I like to early on I like to stack my units like this or something, right? But I like to now spread them out because you have Ahri players and you have assassins, and so it's better if you just keep 2 carries on either side of the board. Now Set and Maokai are kind of your front line, and you have 4 brawlers, so you're getting a little beef in there. And then you kind of spike on Ezreal if you find him because Dazzler is really good right now. So maybe if you can't find a Zero, you could put in like Lux or something, right? Or Morgana, since she's really strong in this patch. But really early on, you're kind of looking to itemize your Ashe. Now, my new best in slot for Ashe is IE, Bloodthirster, and QSS. QSS just protects you against all CC. It's a must if you want that constant DPS. And IE is really good now because there's not as many brawler players, so you don't need to itemize Giant Slayer as much. And Bloodthirster, I said, is a good item now, at least in my opinion, because everybody's just kind of running Morgana, and that extra life steal is pretty good to helping keep up the DPS over the course of the whole fight. Hodge is generally okay as a substitute, so you're gonna need some swords here, some tiers here, and any frontline items can just go to like Set or your brawlers. I would say Hunter, Warwick is pretty good. You could always replace Azir with like Kindred if you need the extra damage, but Elderwood just helps give you the extra armor, MR, AD, and stuff. So generally a pretty good comp to run now in this new patch. Ashe was good really early in the set and kind of fell off once Divine took over and Ahri took over, but I think it's back now that a lot of Elderwood units got buffed. So yeah, let's move on to another similar comp. And this is the 5 Hunter version. Now this version I set it S minus if you're able to hit, but generally I think it's around like A minus, mainly because it's hard to hit, right? You got to get a chosen hunter, and you got to make it to at least level 8, where you can shove in Kindred, Warwick, Ashe, and Aphelios. So this is the way I position, just because you could bait Aphelios with any assassins or anything, and then you just corner Ashe and get her to do all the DPS. Yuumi works the same way, heal and buff. And I splashed in Mystics because I like running Shen. Shen is really good. And you're just kind of protecting your Ashe in this comp. And you're trying to kill the other team as fast as possible. I forgot to mention Bramble is really important, especially in like any of these comps. Any of the comps I mentioned before, Bramble is really important because everyone's running like Talon and stuff, and so it just helps mitigate some of the damage from the IE. But you're still running like the core 4 brawlers and a bunch of hunters, and you're just waiting for Ashe to dish out her DPS. Splashing a little bit of Mystic for any Ahri players or Sharpshooter players or Dusk players, and you are good. Um, Generally pretty flexible. You could run, I guess, legendaries. Zillion is pretty good. Azir is pretty good. I'll talk a little bit more about legendaries later. But this comp is a little bit harder to run. You probably need some experience practicing it, just so that you don't sack too much HP early on. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this comp. This comp is the Dusk Riven comp. Dusk Riven was always good. I guess you could be pretty flexible with the items. I think I forgot to add items to this, but generally Bramble is really good on Riven. It's like Branville. I want to say Sunfire and like you could round it out with like QSS or Dragons or Nashor's Tooth. Um, but yeah, the core of the comp is like 4 Dusk. If you get Chosen Riven Dusk, then you could go to 6 Dusk. You're splashing in some sharpshooters. Jin is going to be your consistent DPS. It kind of works the same way as the Talon comp, but Jin is kind of your consistent damage. Riven is just a tank Talon-esque player or unit, and then you're just kind of waiting on Sedge to just ult and freeze up the units so Riven can finish them with their ult. Pretty flexible with the legendary units. You have Azir, Zillion. You have Lilia if you need extra Dusk. So 6 Dusk is definitely really powerful. Frontline is super, super strong if you hit it. And Vayne Jin for the extra sharpshooter isn't going to be too much, but still helps with the constant DPS across the map. I don't run this comp a whole lot personally, but it is still pretty strong. I probably have to practice it a little bit more, but I'd say it's in the S tier echelon just because everyone's playing Morgana, and this is a good counter to that comp for how much damage you could output. So there are my favorite comps to run. I know I didn't go over like Sharpshooter or any of that, mostly because there's probably a lot of videos online already covering those, but these are kind of my favorite comps that I like to run personally, and I will then now switch over to how I kind of play the game and what are kind of some tips on climbing. So I wrote down some notes. I'll leave it here so you guys can screenshot it or something. But my best advice right now in this current 10.22 patch is to play your best board so that you don't sack too much HP. That way, if you do sack a lot of HP, it's pretty hard to come back from, I find. You usually scramble to roll down like 80 gold once after wolves, and then if you don't hit, you're kind of screwed. So just play your best board regardless of what comp. It could be cultists, it could be duelists, it could be vanguard sharpshooters right here. So I just laid out some early game comps here that are pretty good. Cultists are good just because they save up a lot of HP with Galio buff, and they buff Keeper as well, so if you get Keeper release, it's pretty good. And also they are good item holders for like some other comps that you might want to transition to in the future. Duelist is also the same thing. If you start with a lot of offensive items, then you might be able to slam IE early on your Yasuo or chosen Yasuo, right? So one of my favorite is Vanguard Sharpshooters. It's because you could differentiate between backline, frontline, and you could easily distribute the items without fully completing them. They'll still be somewhat decent, even though you're losing. You're not sacking too much HP, and you'd be pretty flexible with your items, right? So you could slam swords, gloves on your backline, your chains and belts on your frontline. One of the things that I do suggest is right here. If you lose the early carousel, the very first carousel, you have the option to either level, right, or stay until the after the 3 rounds, right, and you have 4 units on the board. I find that if I get like a cloak or belt or a tier that I'm trying to force a comp, it's better that you just sack the first 3 rounds and you get a prioritized item for the next carousel. Reason for that is that I find that it is better to not half-ass the builds, right, on your carry units that will eventually help you either top 4, right, or win the game. It's like, for an instance, Talon. You do not want to run Talon without IE. If you just slam like GS first, then you are probably going to be in trouble, right? I'd rather just have an IE in like, maybe static shiv, right? But IE is like core to that comp. So I'd rather just sack for this extra sword and glove, right? Um, the way I've been playing a lot recently is, again, I said best board, and I play best board until wolves, right? And I'm usually trying to save up to at least 50 gold. I try to hit 50 gold after stage 3, and then you just kind of save up and you just level. You don't bother rolling, you just level. And by the time you hit wolves, you're able to level to 7, right? Push after 36 gold, spend the 36 gold to level, and you just roll it down. I am not a first or eighth player. I just looked at top 4. So there's a difference between first or 8th players. You can greed, and you don't have to roll it down to 0, but I generally just roll it down to 0 because I am afraid of other people running my comp and taking all the units out of the pool. So remember, I think there's only 12 level 4 cost units um, in the entire game. And if you don't get 3 of those 12, then you might be in trouble for the rest of the game. You might not even hit them. So I'd rather just roll down the gold. If you sell your chosen and you just roll, right? So I kind of gave 2 options here. If you have direction with items, it's good because you could just level to 7, sell your chosen, and roll for units in that specific comp you're trying to go for, right? If you have units for the comp, but and you have like good items, then you could decide if you want to fast level 8 or roll it down for upgrades before the units are gone. So I mentioned that, right? You want to roll before other people start picking up the units that you might need, right? Um, so you kind of have the top 4 or the first or 8th mentality. You could greed for units, or you could just roll it down for upgrades. I like rolling down for upgrades because it helps me stabilize the game. Irelia 2 is a good spike. Talon 2 is a good spike. Morgana 2 is a good spike. Um, right? So, and sometimes during those roll downs, you might find some legendary units like Yone who are really good for the Talon comp. So, that's just my mentality when I'm kind of playing the game. But I know a lot of people want to play flexibly and they want to just fast 9 or fast 8. So, um, just depends on how you want to play the game. Um, but it's gotten me at least to masters, so it works in my opinion. I already went over the early game comps that I thought are decent in this patch. Some other notes. Uh, Legendary units. So I mentioned earlier that a lot of the comps I like to play generally only need to go up to level 8. Level 9 is kind of just extra depending on the situation. If you have enough eco, if you have enough HP to sack, if you are able to itemize like Yone or somebody, right? So at level 8 or 9, when you run legendary units, I generally try to play the best one that fits the comp, right? So Talon, you generally want to play Yone, Azir, Ezreal, Zillion. If you have a chosen Dazzler in the Talon comp, Ezreal is really good to round out for 4 Dazzlers. That's really powerful. Yone is just kind of a given. You want to run Yone for 3 Adept, 3 Adept. For Ahri, an extra Zillion or Lilia would be good, especially Lilia if you have a chosen Ahri Mage. For Dusk, Zillion is good because you could run 4 Mystic if there's a lot of mage players, or Lilia because she's an extra Dusk. For Ashe, Azir is really good because it provides you extra frontline, and especially if people are cornering their comps, Azir is really good for, he does his Shurima shuffle, and he will just CC that entire corner, right? It's really, really flexible with what you want to do with legendary units. If you need extra GA, Zillion is good. If you have like 2 Lee Sins already on bench, and you find a third one, then maybe you might want to consider just running Lee Sin with an Ashe, right? So it kind of just depends. I kind of just, if you're able to upgrade a 5 cost unit, I generally just play that, right? It's better than a 1 cost Azir or something. So, yeah, play for upgrades and you could be flexible for the different types of matchups. I can't exactly tell you every specific scenario, but I can tell you that you just need to play flexibly. Last thing I want to mention is item prioritization. So there's glove, sword, chain, tier, cloak and belt, and bow. I generally try to start glove or sword or chain, 1, 2, 3, mainly because glove and sword they go into Ahri, Talon, and Ashe comps. Those are the main 3 that I am playing. Chain, it's best if you go into Dusk. It still goes into Talon and Ahri because of GA, but you're gonna want more swords than gloves or chains, right? If you get tiers, you could go for reroll mages or ninja assassins for the blue buffs. Static shivs for divine, and tiers if you're running any mage combo are always good. If you get a cloak or belt, I just said you might as well just start sacking the first 3 rounds for a better item, right? Because all you could build are like Zephyrs and like Warmogs, and those aren't like high prioritization, right? Um, so bows, generally you should go for Ashe, Dusk, or Ninja Assassins, but my top 3 are Glove, Sword, and Chain right now. So I've had a lot of success running those because those just build directly into IEs, GAs, a lot of offensive weapons that you're going to need in the late game. So those are all my notes. Um, Let me know what you guys think. I don't want to keep this video longer than it has to be, but I just listed out the comps. Let me know what you guys think, and tell me if it works out or not. So that's kind of my patch 10.22 rundown. I'll release this as soon as possible. It's like one day after they just released the patch. They might revert some changes, but those are my favorite comps. So yeah, I will see you guys later. Peace.